Hey there, Craig Tomlin with UsefulUsability.com, and this is a video interview with Russ Wilson. Russ and I met at World Usability Congress late last year. If, by the way, you haven't been to World Usability Congress, I highly recommend it. It's in Graz, Austria, and it truly is a chance for all UX practitioners from really around the world to get together and talk about all things UX and share ideas. So Russ was there, I was there, we had a chance to connect. It was awesome, and so I definitely wanted you to have a chance to meet Russ as well. And so what we'll do today is chat with Russ a little bit about UX, how he got into UX, some of his thoughts about leadership in UX, and where he feels UX is going in the future. So with that, I will turn it over to Russ. And Russ, thank you for being here today. So first question, what's your background? Where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
I actually grew up in Laredo, Texas, on the border of Mexico. Really interesting. Not sure I can explain how I wound up down there or why my family wound up down there, but I am far away from home now. I went to the University of Texas. I got a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in software engineering.
So Russ, how did you get into the UX field?
Well, even in computer science, I was always focused on the experience, on the user interface, right? I remember taking these heavy-duty algorithmics classes, and I would write a UI to sit on top of the algorithm we were working on, and my professors would say, you're not going to get any grades for that, any credit for that. And I just couldn't understand how you could not be thinking about the interface, right? The experience. I met kind of in my career, early in my career when I was working on a lot of startups, I met the CEO of a company called NetQOS, and I was interviewing as VP of engineering for the company. And the more we got to talk, he turned to me and he said, you're not really, your passion isn't engineering management, your passion's design. And I would rather have you lead our design efforts than lead engineering. And that's really the turning point where I started to identify as design user experience.
What's your role today? What products or services are you and your team currently focused on?
So today I'm director of UX at Google for Google's cloud platform. That covers a huge range of products from machine learning to big data and analytics to data visualization to containers, virtual machines, compute, storage. It goes on. It's a pretty broad portfolio.
When you think about UX and leadership today, what are some of the common issues that leaders face?
I think specific to UX, UX leadership, one of the common issues we face is having a seat at the table and helping companies understand the role of design. Engineering is a very well understood discipline. Product management is fairly well understood. Sometimes companies struggle with UX and design and how that fits in as part of that triad. And I certainly think that's an ongoing challenge. Also, how design or what role design plays in product direction. Often I feel that design should have a seat at the table, right, in where the product's headed and based on what we know about our users. And you have some companies and some organizations that believe that product management defines that, and others that believe design should be a part of that. There's really a broad spectrum, but I think that is a challenge.
So same question, what are some of the opportunities that UX leaders face today?
Well, I think that, while we do have our challenges still, I think that companies and senior leaders in companies are recognizing the value of UX and design to their customers. And I think that presents a huge opportunity. We, especially at Google, we strive very hard to be customer focused, user involved. We try to spend a lot of time with our customers to understand their needs, to really develop the empathy that we need to build great designs. And so I think we are seen as a very valuable resource and an essential resource in understanding our customers and our users' needs, and then designing the best solutions for them. And I think that's a great opportunity for design and UX to really affect the direction and the success of many companies.
As a UX leader, how do you motivate and manage UX teams? How do you manage a group of UX designers?
Yeah. Well, I think most designers and creatives that I encounter are very self-motivated and very passionate about the work they're doing. I think the trick is finding a way to not have designers become frustrated given all the constraints that exist in environments where you have large engineering teams and a lot of collaboration and people working on a product in tight schedules. And what I mean by that is that so most of the designers on my team are immensely creative, very talented, very smart. Where they get frustrated is when they can't just unleash that creativity and deliver amazing experiences to our customers because of various constraints. And so I have to work very carefully to mitigate or try to help them be successful and deliver impact, but within those constraints, and help them understand why we have those constraints and why it's not as simple as just designing the best solution. So I would say it's more about, for me, it's more about not really truly motivating them to do great work as much as keeping them motivated in the environments that we work in, if that makes sense. I think a lot of communication, right? Sometimes we get frustrated by decisions when we don't understand the motive behind the decisions or the reasons why decisions were made. So we really try to be as transparent and have as much communication as possible to make sure that teams do understand where these decisions are coming from, and gain some respect for the reasons why we have to do certain things. And then as far as going beyond understanding and helping to keep motivated, we do demonstrate or we do track back and show the ultimate value and the success that we're having with the product in the designs that we do deliver. We have, for example, in my current environment and role, we're seeing a huge uptick in customer value, customer satisfaction, new customers onboarding and feedback from them on how great the experience is. So we are having an impact, even with, the environment and constraints we have to work within.
When you think about UX in the future, what are some of the issues or some of the opportunities that you think new UX leaders will face?
I think it's interesting. I feel like UX is evolving and transforming somewhat to really focus more and more on spoken interfaces, communicating with computers through voice commands and natural language, and also involving machine learning and artificial intelligence, where the systems that we interact with anticipate our needs or interpret what we're asking for, not just literally, but look into the requests we're trying to make and synthesize what we really want. And so I think it's going to be very interesting in how our roles evolve over time from just, say, screens that we're designing to these new ways of communicating, interfacing with computers. Yeah, it's on the way to work this morning, I had an entire conversation, through text with a colleague, and I didn't type a single word. The entire texting interaction was driven by voice, right? And so I think there's going to be some really interesting developments in that area over time.
So what's next for you in your career? What would you like to focus on the next 2 or 3 years with UX?
Honestly, there's so many different technological areas that I'm very, very interested in. You can probably tell from my previous comments, machine learning, voice. But first and foremost, I'm at a point where I'm trying to become the best leader that I can. And I'm spending a lot of time, looking inward and working to very objectively evaluate how I lead teams and how I can improve that. Not because I've gotten any feedback that anything it needs working on, although I'm sure there are, but just primarily because I guess one of my most important values personally is to always be growing and always be improving, and I feel like where I can make the biggest impact right now is in my leadership abilities with the teams that I'm leading. So I'm going to spend a lot of time just really digging into that and seeing how I can truly become the best leader possible. But yeah, certainly, machine learning, AI, I think is just really interesting when you start, not simply interacting with a computer in a kind of, request and then an actions performed, but more of a true interaction where there is some at least artificial thinking happening. I think that's going to be a very interesting realm. You really have to. I love the model of the servant leader. I believe that leadership is two-way, right? I think your teams have to do their part and the leader has to do their part. But I do believe that over time, it's interesting that the more I've gone along in my career, actually, the more humble I've become, and that has helped me out quite a bit. I feel that I would encourage new leaders to really focus on you've got to put in the time and effort to helping your team grow and the people that are in your organization grow and be successful. And that's much easier said than done. A lot of us pay lip service to that, but we don't really execute or follow through on that. And I've seen some examples recently, especially here in Google, where they're just tremendous leaders who really empower and motivate their teams in a truly kind of humble servant leader manner, and that's something I definitely want to emulate and model myself.
Russ, thank you so much for being with us today. Really fabulous ideas and thoughts. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
I appreciate the opportunity to do the interview. Hopefully, I provided some reasonable answers. UX is such an exciting field, and there's just so much opportunity for us to do incredible things. I always tell people if I could have only 2 tools to do my job, it would be direct user observation and prototyping. And, those are 2 things I particularly love because I like tinkering when I can, not so much anymore, but when I can. And I love just spending time with customers and users because no matter how much I think I've got a problem solved or I think I understand what's right for a particular user, when I go spend time with them, I always learn something new, and it always leads to making the product better. So, and if those are the types of things you love, I think you will truly be successful in this field.
So that was my friend Russ Wilson at Google, who is, as you heard, very plugged into UX and where UX leadership is going. Please join me again as part of this continuing series. We'll be interviewing other UX leaders and learning more about their perspective about UX, how to motivate teams, and where UX is going in the future. So thank you for watching. Craig Tomlin, UsefulUsability.com.